Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amita Rarian. Coming up in today's newscast, Operation Shield and Arrow is going into its third day amid hopes for a quick ceasefire. Meantime, ILTV outlining the long Israel-Gaza conflict timeline. And later, the IDF announcing its first use of the David Sling missile defense system. Operation Shield and Arrow continues into its third day with the Air Force pounding terrorist positions in Gaza and killing another senior Islamic Jihad leader. The terrorists fired more than 500 rockets toward Israel over the past 24 hours, causing material damages but no loss of life. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovich.
Any hopes for a quick ceasefire by now have been dashed by continuing rocket fire from Gaza. Israeli airstrikes pounded terrorist positions in Gaza. A targeted strike in southern Gaza killed Islamic Jihad rocket commander Ali Ghali and 2 other terrorists. The killing of Ghali was another major blow for Islamic Jihad, which lost 3 of its top leaders at the start of the fighting. Some 25 Palestinians, mostly combatants, have been killed since Operation Shield and Arrow began on Tuesday morning. Hundreds of rockets fired by Islamic Jihad reached as far as Tel Aviv and Beersheba. Closer to the border, some buildings and cars were damaged by shrapnel or from falling Israeli interceptor missiles. An empty kindergarten received a direct hit on the roof. Damages were reported in Sderot, Ashkelon, and Netivot, as some rockets managed to penetrate Israel's air defenses. But most of the projectiles fell short in Gaza, landed harmlessly in open areas, or were shot down by Iron Dome and David Sling air defense systems. The IDF said the combined defense systems intercepted 154 rockets, marking a 95% interception rate of projectiles heading for populated areas. No injuries were reported, although a number of people sought treatment for wounds suffered as they tried to reach shelter or because of anxiety from nearby impact. Before the latest barrages, Israeli officials said they were considering an Egyptian ceasefire proposal to end the fighting, but sporadic rocket fire and Israeli reprisals have stalled negotiations for now, but efforts are reportedly ongoing.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו עדיין בעיצומה של המערכה. ברגעים אלו ממש, כוחותינו תוקפים בעוצמה ברצועת עזה וגובים מחיר יקר מארגוני הטרור. ואני רוצה לחזור ולומר, כל מי שפוגע בנו, כל מי ששולח טרור נגדנו, דמו בראשו.
The on-again, off-again ceasefire with Gaza rocket-firing terrorists from Islamic Jihad prompted the Prime Minister to tell the nation that Operation Shield and Arrow is not yet over.
אנחנו אומרים למחבלים ולשולחיהם, אנחנו רואים אתכם בכל מקום, אתם לא יכולים להתחבא, ואנחנו בוחרים את המקום ואת הזמן לפגוע בכם. אנחנו ולא אתם. לא רק בתגובה, גם ברגיעה. הבחירה שלנו.
Netanyahu warned the terrorists that Israel will choose the time and place, and they cannot hide. For now, security restrictions in southern Israel remain in place within 40 kilometers or 25 miles of the Gaza border. Israeli officials have insisted that they are still keeping the fight limited to Islamic Jihad unless Hamas takes an active role in combat.
And as Israel has been patiently waiting for a ceasefire, it now seems we will have to wait a little longer. And joining us now to elaborate on the ongoing situation is former National Security Advisor, retired General Yaakov Amidror. General Amidror clearly reports last night of an early ceasefire were premature. Where do you think those efforts stand currently?
I don't know where it stands, but it understood that the Islamic Jihad and the people which are sending him, the Iranians and maybe others, thought they can achieve some terms that Israel is not ready to give, compared to kind of promises that Israel should not give, like stopping the elimination of commanders of the organization in the future in Gaza, and so on and so forth. The operation was, Israel went to the operation for giving a clear message to the neighborhood. There are red lines that if it be crossed by organizations like Islamic Jihad and others, the retaliation of Israel, the reaction of Israel will be strong, and they have to take it into consideration when they make such decisions. We succeeded in the last few hours to kill another important commander of the organization, and that will continue. If they are not ready to compromise and to stop the fire, and we should not, and we will not give them any of their demands.
Now, Israel.
There is one thing: stop the fire, and we stop the fire. That's it.
Yes. Now, Israel eliminated another top Islamic Jihad terrorist. There have been dealt some tremendous blows to personnel and military installations, yet they managed to fire hundreds of rockets towards Israel. How can they be stopped, altogether?
Because we have the Iron Dome, and they didn't succeed to even injure one Israeli, thank God. We have the system, and we are very lucky, and with all their efforts, they didn't succeed to make any harm to Israel. So we can continue. We are blowing and destroying their facilities in every hour. From time to time, we succeed to kill one of their commanders. We can continue. From the Israeli point of view, there is no any issue, any problem to continue. There are many inconveniences around Gaza, mainly around Gaza Street, but at the end, for the state of Israel, this is not something that should stop Israel from continuing bombing the facilities and to kill leaders of this terror organization.
Iran is always part of conflicts. I mean, it's doing its best, Iran, certainly to try to ignite Hamas and other fronts like Lebanon. Is that a likely development this time?
I think that there is a huge difference between Lebanon and Hamas. In Lebanon, they have an organization which is a long arm of Iran, but we don't have one case in which the Hezbollah was ready to sacrifice the life of these people for the sake of the Palestinians, and by the way, vice versa. Hamas is another story. Hamas is under pressure within Gaza because they are controlling Gaza and they are not taking part in the exchange of fire. And maybe they might be under pressure to do it because it is very close to the places and where they are, and they kind of they have kind of control over Gaza. So if you ask me about Lebanon, I think it's very remote. In Gaza, it might happen.
Yaakov Amidror, have a quiet weekend ahead, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
The rocket fire from Gaza impacted the lives of a great many Israelis, more so those living closest to the border, and Sderot is generally hardest hit, and the city of Ashkelon is also within range. Last night, Tel Aviv residents were also targeted. Towns closest to the border, like Sderot, were heavily impacted, and many of the children and elderly were evacuated ahead of the fighting. Over the last 48 hours, Sderot residents have mostly remained sheltered as rockets fell in and around the town. The Gaza border residents are quite used to the experience.
יצאנו החוצה ואכן ראינו עשן מכיוון הבית הסמוך. זהו, מיד הגיעו כוחות הצלה. בני המשפחה של הבית שנפל אצלם לא היו בבית, כנראה יצאו קצת לעברור.
Residents seemed ready to remain sheltered as long as the army was dealing effectively with the terrorists and put an end to the threat.
ממש מגבים את הממשלה ומבקשים שיפעלו בכל הכוח כנגד ראשי הטרור, ארגוני הטרור, תשתיות הטרור, כל מה שצריך, וגם אם המערכה תיקח זמן, אנחנו מגבים באופן מלא ומקווים לתקופה ארוכה של שקט.
These Ashkelon residents felt frustrated, the terrorists dictating when Israelis need to shelter and when not.
חווים את האי-ודאות שהאנשים מעזה המציאו, הבינו שלא צריכים לירות עלינו טילים, אלא פשוט להחזיק אותנו במתח כזה הם השתלטו למעשה על החיים שלנו. זה המציאות שלנו, ובעצם אין פתרון.
אני אגיד לך את האמת, שהם מחזיקים אותנו בביצים. אנחנו לא יודעים פה ולא יודעים שם. אנחנו לא יודעים כלום.
Tel Aviv residents were not spared the rocket trauma. Beachgoers ran for shelters as smoke of rockets' interceptions were seen in the sky. The rocket alarm sounded in Tel Aviv, 60 kilometers or 37 miles north of Gaza and its suburbs, shortly after Israel's Air Force hit Islamic Jihad targets in Gaza for a second day.